Hello and welcome back to another video. Tonight we're going to be doing an in-depth review of the Celestron StarSense Explorer DX. This is the 130mm or 5-inch aperture version of this telescope, and we're going to do a little bit of a setup and see how good this little guy is under even the light polluted skies here in Salt Lake City. So let's give it a go. Let's get started. The Celestron StarSense Explorer DX series is the upgraded version of their popular StarSense Explorer series. The DX designates, basically it's the upgraded, the more beefier, more stable version of the two. They do have an LT version, which is a little bit lighter weight of a mount. It's not as stable, but it is pretty much the same optical tubes though. So you can get a little bit more cheaper out of it, but this DX model is definitely going to be your more stable and definitely more rigid of the two versions out there. Now, the StarSense Explorer here, we have the 5-inch Newtonian version. This is a 5-inch reflector, and this means that the front aperture here is 5 inches in diameter up here at the front. So a Newtonian reflector also designates that we have light coming in this way. We've got a primary mirror back here, and it comes up to a secondary mirror, which is at a 90-degree angle, and the eyepiece comes straight out up here at the top. So that designates a reflector. There are obviously different types of telescopes. There's refractors and also Cassegrains and kind of hybrids between them. But the reflectors are commonly known as light buckets because most reflectors are Dobsonians. So you can get really big aperture on a base for relatively really good value. And Celestron has a couple of those in their lineup where they have an 8-inch and a 10-inch version of their Dobsonians, which would be called light buckets, that use the same StarSense technology, which is really, really great. So with this tonight, we're going to be setting this up basically start to finish here. It's already assembled here, but I'm going to go through the whole initialization process with you with the phone and how to get the StarSense kind of aligned up and what can we see with this? I mean, from a light polluted front yard such here as Salt Lake City, will it actually show us any targets? Can we see the rings of Saturn? Can we, see 4 moons around Jupiter? That's what we're going to kind of answer with this. And we're going to kind of go over some of the good, the bads, and just kind of, see how this beginner telescope stacks up. A close-up look here at our StarSense module right here. This is a rather unique system here. We're going to basically lay our iPhone right here, and it uses a mirror system right here that looks at the sky. And what it will do is it'll use the camera on the iPhone to detect the star pattern. And it's really, really cool. And giving a couple of nights of testing of this, it actually is really, really fantastic technology. But this is absolutely fantastic. You can damage this, which is why it's removable. I recommend taking it off and storing it in the nice soft little baggie it comes with. If you're not quite sure of what all is included with this, you could check out my other video where we did an unboxing of the StarSense. So just to go over just a little bit of a rundown, you've got your StarSense module here. You've got 2 knobs here down on the mount. These are for your adjustments. You can see this one's left and right, and then this one here is going to be our up and down. These are for your fine motion when you get that target in the center of the eyepiece. On the back here, we have some collimation screws. These are for if you need to adjust the mirror, because sometimes if you go over bumpy roads or such, these mirrors can come out of alignment. So these larger knobs here are going to be the ones that actually adjust the tilt of that mirror, and these smaller ones are going to be the ones that basically lock it in. So once you get it, you just lock those up, and it should pretty much hold it nice and firm for you. This side just has a branding on it, and then we have the focuser here. The focuser is a simple 1.25" style. Does have a 2-inch adapter that does come with it from Celestron. You just undo these couple of screws. You can change your eyepieces out. Real simple. And then on the front, you've got your red dot finder right here. And then as we look down the optical tube here, you can see we've got a nice 5-inch primary mirror there in the back. The secondary mirror is up here at the front, reflecting the light. The secondary mirror is also collimatable, so you can also adjust it if you need some adjustments. Typically, though, these don't really come out of alignment all that often. But sometimes if you were through some extreme conditions, you may have knocked that out just a little bit. Now, aside from that, though, we just go back to our altazimuth head that we have here. It's a very nice, upgraded, more stable platform. Like I said, the DX version than the LT. And then you have this nice tripod here that it sits on. So how do we get this thing going? Well, that's going to be the really great question that we have. So let's get started with the initialization of the StarSense technology. First, we're just going to pull this little tab here and then set our iPhone right down in to the cradle. Nice and secure, just like that. Then what we're going to want to do is open up the StarSense app right here. Now inside of our app here, this is in the main menu button right down here, these 4 little icons. You do have a quick start tutorial if you're brand new to this telescope, and it'll walk you through some instructions. They're a little bit confusing, I can say. The only really bad part I found is that as you go through this, it tells you to put your phone in the dock, but then it says to center the phone camera over the mirror. When you first open up the app, you are not to this spot yet, so disregard this step in the process because we are simply not there yet. So what we're going to do is it's going to say select an object. You're going to point at a street light or something very close, relatively like in your neighborhood. You don't have to pick something, like the moon, because that's too far away. But pick something relatively close to you, like a street light, a stop sign at the end of the street, something like that. Or it suggests like maybe the top of a tree, top of an electrical pole, something like that. That's, down your neighborhood or maybe in the next neighborhood over. And that's a good object. And what you're going to do is you're going to get the telescope on that target, and then we're going to line up the camera field of view with this. So it says center the object in the eyepiece, which we're going to do now. Now I've gone ahead and centered a local target into the eyepiece. Unfortunately, in my neighborhood, there's really not too many things at night that you can do this. So it's best to do this during the daytime or even at dusk. But it's not a great example, but that street light right there is the one we're going to be using, and it's only across the street, so it's not a great target to pick for this, but it will demonstrate everything for you. So once you pretty much go past the quick start guide, which is basically just laying your phone into here, what you're going to do is you're going to hit this button that's going to start pulsing. This is the StarSense button. It's going to ask you, is your phone still aligned with the telescope? Now, if you have pulled out your phone, I would recommend doing this every single time you set this up, because obviously everything can be just a little bit different every time that you go out and do a little bit of observing. So we're going to say this needs alignment, so I can demonstrate this for you here. So here is what it is saying is to center the camera. There are some fine motion controls on the bottom side of this bracket here, and it's going to be kind of hard to see, but if I move them, you'll see the view of the camera change. You see that we're actually moving the phone cradle. See there, we're completely black, and you see kind of where the cradle is, and then the second knob moves it up and down. So there's the top of the mirror up there, and then we'll hit the bottom down here. So we want to center it up roughly the best you can, at least the best you can, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but right about there is centered for my phone. Now this step here is complete, that we've centered our camera over the mirror. This is all it's wanting us to do. Then we can hit the next button. And then it's asking, now draw image to align crosshairs with the eyepiece view. Now I like to zoom in on this step, and I'll try to tone down my brightness here a little bit so that you can see it. What we're going to do is we're going to draw this to where that perfectly in the center is the center of that light, because that's where it is in the eyepiece. And we're going to hit done. Okay. Now it's going to say it's ready to locate object. Point the telescope toward. Now it's ready to locate items in the night sky. It says point the telescope towards a clear patch of the sky with stars. Wait for the red bullseye to turn yellow, and then follow the directions arrow to find a target. So we want to hit OK. And then we're just going to simply point this up towards the sky, just like this. And it's, most of the time it will say up here in the top screen, finding telescope position, just like that. Telescope position found. So you don't need to put this on 2 different alignment stars. It will literally just do it for you, which is fantastic. So it automatically registers the night sky and figures out where your location is, or at least the location of the telescope is pointing. So the cool thing is that we can now say, okay, I had Saturn selected, so that's what it's still telling me to find. So what we want to do now is, I'm just going to move this back a little bit so you can see it a little bit better, is we are going to move the telescope manually, and we can watch that bullseye get smaller and smaller and smaller. Now once we're close by, the bullseye gets larger to where it's within 5 degrees. Now what we'll do is we'll take our fine motion control knobs, which are down here, and we will move the telescope around until we have got it pretty much in the center. Now it tells us the telescope is on the target and to look through the eyepiece. Now if I just set this back here for just a second, we're going to see how close it is in the eyepiece here. So it's still showing that it is perfectly in the eyepiece, and looking through the eyepiece, it is just a little bit off to the left, but not too much. So what we can do is we can grab our slow motion controls and center it right up. And there is Saturn for us. So the technology really does work really fantastically. Now we can go back to the app and we can find anything really, from deep space objects to really anything in the night sky that we want to see. Whereas tonight's best, so you can see the bright stars, the best deep sky objects. We're going to click on one. We're going to have us go over to the Lagoon Nebula just to see if we can see it. It'll give you all types of information here in the StarSense app, including some audio.
M8 is a famous lagoon nebula and one of the most photographed deep sky objects. This very large cloud of gas and
so this app has audio for several hundreds of objects, so it can tell you a lot about different deep sky objects. But what we're going to do is hit the button too quick, my apologies, is we're going to hit the button down here that says locate, and now it's going to have us locate M8, which is the Lagoon Nebula. And you just simply take the back of the telescope, you can just grab onto it and move towards M8. And it's saying that we should be in there by now. Now this one, because we had the higher power eyepiece in there, we're going to want to change it out for something a little bit less powerful. This telescope does include 2 different eyepieces. So we have this one in here, which is a 10mm eyepiece, and then we also have another one which is a 25mm eyepiece. Are they the best eyepieces? Not necessarily, but they do the job, and they do the job okay. You'll probably want to upgrade to better eyepieces, as these are just very basic beginner eyepieces that really don't have a ton of clarity to them. Now this one is just off to the right a little bit. You can see the open cluster that is associated with the Lagoon Nebula in the eyepiece. So it definitely does point correctly using the StarSense technology on the phone, which is absolutely incredible for beginners. And I think that that's really an awesome feature that Celestron's incorporated some of this new technology into being able to help the beginner locate objects that were what used to be star hopping, and what telescopes about 15 years ago or so really came on the market with GoTo technology. But the problem was some of those GoTo telescopes were not really the best. And so this really does help simplify a lot of things for the beginner, which is absolutely incredible. One of the things to note is that the mount itself, even though this is the upgraded mount version, the mount itself does struggle a little bit with shaking. So especially when you're trying to locate the target or get it centered in the eyepiece, when you touch these slow motion controls and you get them really close to the center, the object will jiggle back and forth for about a good 2 to 3 seconds. So you'll have to let it settle down. Even though this is on the ground, which is a lot better than pavement, because pavement will give you a lot of vibrations through the telescope. But using the ground, it still jiggles probably about 3 seconds worth of vibration. So something to note is that if you're using higher power eyepieces, you're going to have to maybe give it a little bit of time to settle down. But aside from that, the red dot finder is absolutely great. You just have to align it with the telescope during the daytime. The focuser moves nice and smoothly. The StarSense technology works absolutely fantastic in finding stuff. The only other bad part about this type of a design is that if you're trying to observe something that's straight up overhead, because the tripod sticks out a little bit and because the mount is so short on this tripod, you will strike the tripod legs with the tube if you're not careful. So that's the only little bad part about this. But overall, it's an absolutely amazing beginner telescope. The optics are really nice and clear. They're really beautiful. And with a high power eyepiece like the 10mm eyepiece, you can easily get Saturn with its rings and the cloud belts of Jupiter. And I think that is really something that's really incredible for the beginner out there. Some final thoughts on the Celestron StarSense Explorer DX series of telescopes. I actually really like this one a lot. It's probably one of the favorite beginner telescopes I've gotten my hands on in the last probably close to 10 years of doing this hobby. And it's just really easy to set up. Once you learn the process just once or twice, it'll just click for you. The instructions, like I said earlier in the video, are a little strange, where it wants the the camera to be centered over the mirror, but that's before you even get to the initialization of the actual StarSense technology itself. So I think that that's a little bit confusing, because it certainly confused the crap out of me for the first like 10 minutes. When I first set this up, I'm like, what does it want me to do? But then I finally was like, oh, well, that's the next step. So disregard, move on. But aside from the instructions and the mount being just a little bit wobbly, you can't have everything though in a beginner telescope. And I think that's where you have to set that expectation for a beginner telescope. This is going to be your first instrument to really see the night sky. You can see a lot of detail on the moon with one of these. You can see Saturn's rings with this, Jupiter's moons with this. You can see bright deep sky objects like the Ring Nebula, the Dumbbell Nebula, M13 globular cluster. Like, you can see a lot of the bright deep sky objects. 5 inches though will actually give you quite a bit of aperture. You can see quite a bit with a 5-inch telescope. The bad part is that the 2 eyepieces that are supplied are not going to give you enough magnification though to really do some serious observing if you're looking for higher power. So with the 25mm, I think it's something like 25 times magnification, 24 times, something like that. And the 10mm is 60 times magnification. So you obviously need something like a 2 times Barlow to really get you up above 100 times power, to really get you close enough to Saturn's rings that it really looks really nice. The reflector design is really friendly on beginners. The only bad part is you do have to learn how to collimate, and that can be a little bit daunting. They do make laser accessories, or even just a little end cap with a little pinhole right in the middle of it that can really help you dial in the mirror adjustment, which is really, really helpful. The other good thing, though, about this is that this is super lightweight and portable. You can literally just pick this up and just take it over to wherever you want to go with it. So it's really lightweight, really portable, and that's absolutely fantastic. The other absolutely incredible thing about the StarSense Explorer series is that, let's say Jupiter is behind the tree, which it is right now for me here, and it's about 10:30 at night. It's right behind the tree. I can pick this up and take it to the end of the yard there where it's not behind the tree, let the StarSense module over here point it back up at the sky, let it do its resynchronization of, oh, I found the star field again, and then all we have to do is then it'll locate Jupiter again for you. There's no realignment needed of the stars, because you've aligned the center of the camera to the center of the mirror. And that is really, really, really cool technology. So if it's not visible, you can take it over to your neighbor's yard. So the good, about this. I really like the technology. I really like the really accurate pointing of the StarSense module. I like the optical tube that they have on this one, 5-inch reflector, really good choice for a beginner. The mount is nice and stable enough for most everybody who's going to be learning the hobby. It's a great beginner telescope to really learn the hobby with, really get behind how the sky works, how everything, moves. And then you'll learn also with your slow motion controls how much you need to just move across. And that's literally how fast the planet is rotating against the sky. The other cool thing that a lot of people don't really talk about is this telescope being removable. Obviously, it has a Vixen-style dovetail here on the side, but if you undo this, you can slide this optical tube off, and you can replace it with whatever you want. If you've got a small refractor, maybe you're a little bit of an advanced beginner and you have maybe something like a small Maksutov Cassegrain that mounts by a dovetail, you can mount any telescope on this and use the same StarSense technology. So in some ways, you're actually getting a telescope and a mount that you can, I would say up to about 5 pounds or so of a telescope tube, remount a different telescope on this. And that is really fantastic because then you can simply take whatever telescope you want to use and use the StarSense technology. So if you're not feeling this, or maybe you bought a 4-inch Maksutov Cassegrain, which only is going to weigh about 4 pounds or so, you can put it on here and do higher power planetary viewing of Jupiter and Saturn than this telescope will give you. So it's actually a really, really versatile setup. The other goods about it, though, the slow motion controls are nice and smooth and they work absolutely fantastically. The focuser is really nice and solid. It also allows for 2-inch eyepieces with an included little adapter collet that you can slide in there, and it'll give you 2-inch eyepiece functionality, which is absolutely awesome. The StarSense app is free. You do have to have a download code that is included in the box, but be aware, you only can use that code so many times before it expires. So you have to be careful that if you ever sell this telescope on the used market, you haven't used up all of the different credits that are associated with your particular serial number. Like I said, the optics are really, really sweet in this. It's a beautiful optical design, and they're really sharp and clear, and the focus is just pinpoint. A Saturn looks absolutely great. It's not very big, but you will see the rings, and you will just have that wow moment of seeing Saturn for the very first time. But what are some of the bads? A little bit unstable at times. That's where, the shakiness comes in. But that's to be expected with a beginner telescope. You can't really have everything with these beginner telescopes. This one is priced at $479, so just under $500, but it gives you a really awesome setup. Accompany this with your favorite star chart, maybe a field guide for astronomy, and you'll be all set to go. Also, since the StarSense app is based off of Sky Safari, you can create in Sky Safari, maybe on your iPad, you can create observing lists and then follow along with this app and observe, some targets that you have said, ooh, I really want to look at the Pleiades tonight. I've never seen that before. You can punch that in, go right to it. It'll find it for you. Until next time, clear skies